Hi, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode with Coach Kanji and myself, Jeev Sahu, like Yahoo. We talk about business without anxiety, but effectively, what we talk are things that we are shy about talking, especially as men, and we try to make it lighter and easier to understand so that more people talk about it. Anxiety is something that is prevalent everywhere in life, and the more we talk about it, the more we share, it becomes a minimized problem, diminishing problem. So that's the idea behind this. We have been doing a number of episodes, and thank you for all the love that everyone is showing. Thank you for all the questions that people are sending. And we try to answer all these questions anonymously. The person who is attending knows they're getting their answers. We don't want to share any names so that it feels safer to share more questions. Coach Kanji, he is leading ample therapy. Each letter in that word has a meaning behind it. If you have been following us, there are different episodes specifically for those letters. And at Step It Up and Mindly, we use the simple approach where again each letter um, has a specific meaning on decision making, which effectively leads to whether you're happy or anxious. Coach Inayat Kanchi, welcome again. Over to you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Jeep. Yeah, really well. Just returned from some MOT servicing for myself.
Oh,
So a
really?
little gym
Okay.
and spa, which is a weekly routine, like twice a week. As you know, like I enjoy sport, and so amongst teaching mixed martial art, I also do lots of personal sports for my own enjoyment and longevity, and
Right.
putting onus and accountability to the vehicle that I've been gifted with from God. So
Exactly.
yeah. So in doing that this morning, I feel really good, as you can probably tell. I'm ranting.
Amazing. I am very happy to hear that. And you're the second person this week who talked about MOT. One was my real MOT for the actual car. And for viewers who are outside of the UK, MOT is effectively an annual maintenance check that every car has to do to be roadworthy. And what the euphemism here is simply uh,
I
Inayat
am
went
roadworthy.
Inayat went to the gym and everything is fine. So
I'm
he meant
roadworthy.
he's maintaining himself. The second person who mentioned this also was in the same context when we're talking, because he's a client, the person who conducted the MOT. He mentioned that as a business consultant, I often do MOT for small businesses. So we look at how are you going? Is every part of your business working fine? Because small businesses can get overwhelmingly busy, and you might be simply focused on one customer, the loudest customer often at times, or maybe four customers, but you might have forgotten your team members or employees, or something else that is going on, and suddenly the tax man is there, and things start popping up. But if you keep doing regular MOTs, then it is easier to maintain. So welcome back in a fresh form.
Thank
So
you. Thank you.
awesome. In fact, we pick up topics from what our audience ask, and we have been getting a couple of questions which has formulated today's topic. And the topic today, Coach Kanji, is the positive power of minimizing things or breaking things into small parts.
Ooh,
Um, I know minimizing is a word which comes with a negative connotation, because it's also one of the biases, by the way, both
mm.
positive and negative. You can
We're gonna get
minimize,
into that. We're
yeah,
gonna
we can
get into
minimize things, but where we are
that.
coming
Yeah.
from is how can we break something down to make it more manageable. So when you hear this topic, what comes to mind? What are your thoughts?
Hmm. What are my thoughts? Well, look, you're a business coach. I work to help people more in the capacity of emotional understanding that leads to then thought and then action in all capacities of their life. Um, so we just mentioned going to, for instance, the gym.
Hmm.
Many people have blocks around the things that they can achieve achieve or can't achieve, whether it relates to life or business. And as you know, as a marathon runner, right? If we overwhelm ourselves with the expectation of the eventual outcome or destination,
Mm-hmm.
we will constantly feel stuck in the mud almost, grounded with weight, whereby we have inaction. We don't do anything then, right?
Right.
And that can also then cause even more issue of, because one is not making any movement, they then start to progress to think about the past and worry about the future, and it snowballs the issue of losing the idea of presence of mind and emotion and
And
being.
getting scared because
Yes,
it's so big and so huge inside. The more you think
false
about it, it's even
expectation.
even looks bigger than it is really, isn't it? So
Hmm. Appearing real, as you know. Yeah. So yeah. So within that, why I mentioned that is to give a context to minimizing and
hmm
giving, once again, as you know, always we like to give analogies of imagery so people
hmm
maybe can visualize it. So if with the human body, as we've just discussed, one has to consistently work to build
yeah,
in the direction of an outcome.
yeah,
But when doing so, I focus upon the individual session of building. And sometimes when my energy is low, I still go. I don't kill myself, but I still consistently go.
you still pick up the energy and courage to do that small step. um
Indeed.
I'll try to
So
give
if you can
you,
relate that to business now, because
even
I'm
before
thinking
we
already how it
even
relates. Yeah,
before
but
we
go on.
go to business, I
Hmm.
want to take two steps and then come to business. The first step
Okay,
is even a simpler physical example I'll give,
please,
and the second one I'll move it to emotions and then bring it to business. So the first
please.
physical example, let's say you are climbing a tree or climbing down a tree, climbing up or down. Let's say a small tree, let's say 5 feet or something like that, or 5 steps on a stair. No one can and should
Hmm.
just jump from the top to the bottom in one step. What you do is you take one step, then look down, okay, take another step, take another step, take another step, and then you are at the bottom if you're climbing down. Similarly, if you're climbing up the tree, even if it is a small or a big tree, whatever, take one step, look up, take second step, take third step, take fourth step. You can do that on staircases, you can do that on buildings, you can do that in life. It is not designed nor intended that we go from here to here in like a step change. And if we try to do that physically, we can actually know that it is either difficult or impossible, right? I mean, if I tell you go to the 10th floor, you can say I go step by step and you can do it. But it's either extremely tough or impossible to jump to the 10th floor, right?
Indeed, indeed.
And we get that physically. What we forget mentally, and that brings us to anxiety, is that we have to do the same steps for the bigger goal, bigger things of life. If you want to improve your job, improve your business, improve your physique, achieve whatever, or even have a better relationship, it does not go from here to here in a step change. It goes like this, like this, like this. In fact, I have, let me see. Oh, I closed it. I have a nice visual from a Harvard psychologist where, say, we plan life in steps and then life comes with noodles like
I
that,
like that. I like that. I
right?
like that.
But none of it is like here and here in one go,
Mhm,
especially if it is bigger.
mhm,
If we can visualize it physically and remember it when things are emotional and mental,
mhm.
then we will stop catastrophizing or stop thinking it is bigger than. I'm one of your favorite phrases is false evidence
Evidence
appearing real.
appearing. Yeah,
False evidence appearing real. It will even look worse if we keep on thinking it's such a big task, such a big task. But if I start doing it small, it becomes easier. And
mm,
you must have seen there is this scene in in the TV series Friends, where Chandler is scared to get married. He runs away, and Ross is helping him. All right, buddy, let's start with a shower. Then put on the shirt.
Yeah,
Then put on the tie. Then you go one step. Then you go, and then and that. I mean, of course,
you
that was jokes, but whole life is, if we do it this way, we will stop being so overwhelmed or anxious, um, even before we start applying to business scenarios.
100%. And I was going to say, to overlap to that sentiment, because when somebody starts to lose their their mind in terms of control of their thoughts, it's
Hmm.
often it is that pendulum of swinging to situations which haven't happened as yet, and then also using evidence of the past to justify it, and back and forth in that way, and thus creating lots of anxiety, right? As I call bad movies being played in your head that you're not going to get an Oscar for, because
Yeah,
really, if one just stays present, like you say, and does the action of the present moment, like you described, and it's strange because I mentioned these things in the sense that I learned this stuff sadly through rehab, because when I had formed addiction issues in my past, in taking a substance every day to soothe a feeling of or an emotion, it meant that when I stopped taking substances, my mind literally did not know how to cope with the overload that I had been ignoring. Right. And it would fly forward and back, and I could never stay present, and everything felt such a chore and such a weight. So this was a real learned experience of, like you say, almost going back to childhood and just simply saying, right, I'm going to have a shower, I'm going to brush my teeth, and just taking it momentary by moment by moment, and momentary evidence proving to myself that I'm okay. So similarly, when we talk about business or emotional well-being or physical well-being, one has to just approach it in that minimizing fashion of stay present in the moment, do an action, and then the evidence will inevitably make you feel better, even if it's a
and you keep
small
on
action.
having the compound effect of feeling good every step. Yeah,
Exactly, exactly. What
yeah.
rather than worrying about the eventual outcome. And then one thing I'll add to that as well is because many people in the current modern world, because of social media and things like that, we are constantly comparing to an even further degree than before. With
Unfortunately,
the
yeah.
advent of radio, TV, newspapers, all of this stuff, like, we went from just looking at maybe our neighbors and tribal people to suddenly,
And we only
looking at
see
the
the
world.
good, and we only see the good stuff people are sharing, come, and we think that, oh my gosh,
Or
I
similarly the bad,
must be a loser.
because, like,
Yeah,
when you hear stories of somebody losing everything within business, some people are really cautious, then justify to themselves, well, I don't have the capability of that person has become bankrupt. The point being is, a lot of the information in the world, and now we have over information, because now you see all these startup businesses suddenly start a social media campaign of some sort, or some marketing campaign, suddenly blow up, and, like, and you always question yourself, what am I doing wrong? What is it that I'm missing out? Why am I not moving as fast as everyone else? And what I try to remind people again is the journey. I
yeah,
enjoy the journey. So I actually enjoy growing slowly and organically. I don't want to overwhelm myself in that capacity whereby I then have no time for me, right? Some
right,
people
yeah,
sometimes, in wanting to build so quickly, forget all the other components of life as well, from family, friends to yourself, right? So it's a real balancing act. And that's why I find that the topic that you chose there is really apt, because it's something I try to practice constantly. Just be present, work in the present, focus on the task at hand. And yes, planning is an important thing, but do not fear and worry so much that you overly spend time in those areas, where then you start losing even the enjoyment of the journey itself
of
and
every
growth,
step.
right?
We just got a wonderful question from the audience. Are humans programmed to think the worst? I have an answer. I do have an
Depends who
answer
your
for
parents were. Depends who
that.
your parents were.
Yeah, so I'll try to answer this question in two steps. One from biology perspective, evolution and so forth. And the second one in today's world, connecting it to social media, like you were just saying. Okay. So human beings, if you see, are very One of the smallest creatures in the wild world, right? I mean, if you throw a human being in a jungle without an, if they did not have their intelligence and brain, they are quite weak, if you see. And over the years, the frontal part of the brain is the one thing that the thinking side is increasing in size. One of the reasons why the brain jumps for biases or for the worst scenario is it plans for the worst so that anything else that happens, so let's say that the human is sleeping under a tree in a jungle 10,000 years ago or more, right? if if the human has already planned for the attack from the lion,
Mm,
everything else is a smaller problem.
mm,
If they plan for the worst, everything else is a smaller problem. So the brain automatically thinks of the worst and says that if I stick there, then I can manage everything else. So that's the evolution or biology side of things. For example, there is, I doubt, I don't know the inside of what a tiger or a dog is thinking, right? But I doubt they would be planning that if that happens, I do this, and if this happens, I do that, and this happens, I do that, and this, and humans do that
mm,
with their thinking part of it. And the brain thinks I'm doing it to take care of the body for safety.
mm,
But when it becomes uncontrollable, we burn out, we lose energy, and like Mark Twain said, my life is filled up with disasters which never happened.
mm, mm,
There's the scenario playing, role playing, and so forth. So that's the side of things that uh, you think of the worst so that you can plan for everything else as a safety mechanism. Same thing for cognitive biases. They think of people jump to conclusions because if they had to process all these things, it would take longer. So you might have seen when there are these mathematicians doing calculations which are like mind-boggling, they're not
mm.
really doing every step because they have practiced so much.
Yeah.
They jump certain steps because they
Mhm,
exactly know that this is the steps already. So the brain already does those kind of things. Now, if I bring it to the modern world with social media, and I see Inayat is doing wonderful, going to the gym and doing
mm,
this and that, etc. And if that moment, both sides, whether positive, so-called positive and so-called negative, I might think, yeah, you know what, good for Inayat. That's the healthy way of thinking, which 99% of people don't think like that.
important.
They think, what's wrong with me? Or I could be doing this, or oh, I wish I had money, or I wish I had time, or something of that kind. And then, or somebody would say, oh, come on, these kids, because of these people, I am not able to go to the gym, and so forth. It starts going into a role. They might be looking at the shiny part of the apple, but not the rotten side of the apple. I'm not saying they would have it, but people don't see it, is what I mean. And that goes on, as you know, as a repeat loop, and people start losing it and being
Yeah.
anxious and
Yeah.
comparing themselves to just one side of things that they see, right?
That's one reason why initially when I set up Ample Therapy,
Mm-hmm,
I started doing a few posts and things, and I was about to start creating loads of videos how I had in the past when I was an actor and presenter.
mm-hmm,
Um, but I stopped only because I recognize even with me, I'm a human at the end of the day, right? I would love to claim that I've perfected it and that I'm a monk in this life coaching, industry. But even with myself, I recognize that as a startup, I'm
mm-hmm.
comparing myself already. And because of the expectation of past when I was an actor and doing well in certain scenarios with the comedy sketch group and different things, right? I naturally thought I have to achieve this. I have to achieve, and I started
You have
waiting,
to reach that level.
right? and and I stopped enjoying the initial process as much. And so that's why I put it down. And even till now, I've only done a few videos and a few posts and things like because I enjoy the process of the journey more so. And I'm sure there'll come a point where that will be the next enthusiasm, right? But at this point, it's because I don't want to do it from a place of fear or pressure or expectation. I want to do it because I enjoy taking videos and sharing the
You
information.
hit
I
upon a
enjoy this
very
pleasure.
nice point, very nice point, and I will actually pause the business side I was telling, and I'll elaborate on this a bit
Please,
more.
please, please, please.
Many business people, they have started business to prove something to their parents, or prove something to their spouse, or prove something to themselves or a teacher, or do something that may be a great reason but not should not be the starting reason for doing this thing. And many business owners are trying to prove something to the customer and even to their ex boss as well. They might have just walked away from their job thinking I'll do it on my own, and so forth. And I tell people, and you use the key word enjoy, you use that word, you have to align your heart and head, and that's why you are doing a business,
Mhm.
and that should create value for the customer. You're getting money or whatever else out of the business, but you have to create value for the customer slash society in order for the business to grow. If you are, believe me, I found somebody who was at the verge of burnout because he was constantly comparing himself with Elon Musk, without having none of the resources that Elon might have. And this guy
Mhm.
sat in his bedroom trying to start something and tried without any money, without any support, and depending on the background we come from, your family might simply say, if things go right, they say yay. If things go wrong, blame it. So there is a guilt associated, and so forth. And I said, just don't even think about comparing with anyone. Forget Elon, don't compare yourself with anyone. You are doing better than what you were doing yesterday. So let's break it down. And this is where, if I can segue to breaking things down, and we started breaking things down into what can be managed: revenue goal, cost goal, social media review goal. Google reviews was one of his KPIs. And I saw this guy, he got 10,000 followers in 3 months. I don't know, maybe he's paying somebody to get these followers. How do I do it? And blah blah blah. And I said, okay, how many followers do you want next week? And he said 20. Right, let's stick to 20. Can we get 20 followers next week and ask each of them to get one follower? Maybe we'll get 40 next week. That sounds doable. All right, 20. I go to a networking event every Wednesday, and I'll ask those 20 to give me a Google review. All right, let's do that. And you could actually physically hear the sigh of relief,
Mhm.
which released a lot of energy for him to then focus on creating the business plan. Once you give away what is burdening you, you actually recover energy to focus on constructive work. And he says, all right, let's plan for October. All right, can we do this many number of customers? And while doing that, he again suddenly catastrophized, saying, oh my gosh, if I have to do this, I have to get 35 customers by next November. And I don't think there is any way in this world that I can get 35 customers by November. And it's a big task. Oh gosh. And you could then feel the energy going down because he's so worked up thinking that's there. And I used an example from your networking group, Inayat, and I actually give credit to that particular person. He mentioned, if you have to do, let's use an example of 100K. If you have to create 100K in 12 months, and in that particular case, your ticket size is, let's say, 5K. That it was an IT company. You might be guessing who is the person he was using an example. Per customer, on an annual basis you earn 5K, which means approximately 400 a month or something like that, which is very practical numbers, very real life numbers, right? 400 from a customer a month goes to around 5K per customer, right? Which means you need 20 people to create 100K. And I was just explaining this, and this guy said, and I normally explain it by using someone else's example, otherwise they start saying, you don't know my business, this happens, this happens. All right, hear this out, hear this out. So 20, is 20 the number? Yes, 20 is the number. For every person you speak with in person, how many people sign up? Oh, for every, let's be pessimistic, and for every 10 people, one signs up, which is still very practical. And in online world, it's a little lesser. For example, for every 50 likes, one person might be your customer. Let's call it that way. Yeah. Okay. So you do networking. So so in order to find 20 people who will sign up, you need to then multiply it by 10, because 1 in 10 is signing up. Am I still making sense? Maths okay? And the person says, yeah. So that means you should speak with 200 people over a period of 12 months. Yes. You meet weekly. Yes. How many meetings? Let's call it 50 meetings. 200 divided by 50 is what? 4. So every week you need to speak with 4 people. Yes. And even if one converts, 1 in 10, you have chances to make 100K. Okay, he was still doubting it, but it was sinking in.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
4 people. How many days in a week? 5 days. So that means you need to speak with less than one person a day to make 100K. And the guy was, wow. When you
Mm.
break it down, you are now, you should make the bigger goal. I mean, this is extremely important to they say you have to make smart goals. Smart goals should not be for bigger goals. Bigger goal has to be big. It's called big, hairy, audacious goal. That means you have to aim for the stars. Aim for being like, instead of 100K, you should aim for maybe 1 million. But when you break it down, those mini steps have to be smart. The mini step has to be, I got to talk to Inayat today, and if he does not come back, I just need to remind and so forth. And if you keep doing that as a habit, if you make a consistent effort to talk to one person, the habit will make me talk to maybe 5 persons, because it's easy to talk from 1 to 5 is not that big a difference to talk every day. And slowly the results start becoming exponential. And I can confirm this is real numbers that I that guy crossed his 100K number way before November. November crisis never even happened, and things really took off by the power of breaking things down and consistency. And that takes away the overwhelm, that takes away the anxiety, and this is why we can run the business without anxiety. You break it down, be consistent. Break it down, be consistent. Keep the big goal, but break it down, be consistent.
And this is what, again, I tell my clients, feelings of depression or, limiting beliefs or critical talk to oneself often just stem out of feeling like one is not enough. But
Yeah.
if we want to break it down further, it is somebody having, in effect, lost the ability to dream or felt their dreams have been shattered. Um, and within that, thus, they feel abandoned and rejected themselves by
And they
society,
believed
by
that more
people
than they
around them.
believed their own story, right? They believed the other story more than they believed this story.
And so, like you say, you have to have a big, audacious kind of like, objective
Goal.
to
Yeah.
some degree, a goal, right? Um, However, within that, know that it is the dream, right? So, dream should be something that's pleasurable,
Hmm.
a visual idea of what will be in the future, but it is not necessarily something that I hold on to daily and beat myself with them if I
Not
haven't
not the
arrived at
big
the point.
thing. Yeah, you
Yeah,
cannot be
right.
holding on to the
It's the
big thing.
dream. It's the
Yeah, yeah,
dream, right? So enjoy the process of one day arriving within your dream, because as you make these steps, and build the foundation blocks and take one more step up the ladder, one more rung
yeah,
up the ladder, and all these things, like, you know, it just like we mentioned, it firstly keeps you more focused in the present and
yeah,
allows you not to catastrophize, enables you to find evidence in your own abilities and your own progress,
yeah.
um, which then ensures that you feel good about the process, and then you feel like you will get closer to your dream, and then you catastrophize less. It's a whole holistic approach, right?
Yeah,
Which then just keeps someone grounded and centered
yeah.
in steadily building.
And it keeps it so achievable, and you enjoy the steps as things grow. In
Yeah,
fact,
I'll give you another. Sorry,
yeah,
sorry to
go
interject.
ahead.
Right, I had a
Go ahead.
client recently because we're sharing client stories. Right, I had a client recently who, well, actually, it's not a client, even a colleague, to be fair, but it is evolving into a client because
Okay.
we're in different parts of the wellness industry, but they're quite new.
Mm-hmm.
They said they've only been practicing for a year.
Mm-hmm.
Within that year, they've never charged anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so I was like, that's interesting. And we started exchanging details. They're like, how long have you been practicing for? I was like, a few years. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And they expected me to have everything sorted in terms of, you know, how we talk about in the business, on the business, right?
Yeah,
They were
yeah,
shocked that my website is still under construction. They were like, so how are you making money? And again, this is the point, limiting beliefs. I said, look, because I didn't have the energy as one person to set everything up first and then run with it, I chose a different avenue. I just built from a different angle, whereby I worked on my immediate contact list and I
yeah,
built from there reputationally. I started doing the work. I started very low in terms of what I charged, and I saw every evidential improvement in reputation and consistency of clients meant that I just increased the fee.
and
As my
entrepreneurs
calendar
are
week
like
got
that.
built bigger and busier, you increase, right? To the point now I have the organic money, the funding, without taking loans and stressing myself out or anything like that, to now invest in my website, in my social media, in something other,
Exactly.
in a network group or whatever it is. So the point is, it was very interesting to see one person feeling like they have to have everything ready before they launch themselves and ask for a return. Whereas me, I just remember being like, yeah, people come to my house, like, let's just do it in this makeshift room I've made, like, and we'll
Yeah.
start the therapy.
You created the boat while swimming.
There we
I'll
go.
I'll give a funny example from the world of running,
Hmm.
and I hope the audience forgives me if I get the country wrong. I think this word comes from Sweden, and the word is called fartlek,
Yes, yes.
Fartlek.
I've got
And
family in Sweden. Yeah, that's funny.
oh, okay, yeah. So
I've heard it.
the concept is to break a marathon into smaller ones. In fact, originally the concept came to run between posts. So when I used to run, I used to count three lampposts. I will be increasing my pace, and then three lampposts I'll take rest. Three
Hmm.
lampposts I will increase my pace. Three lampposts I'll bring it down, and that what it does, it keeps on improving my stamina for a full marathon. And you can then create your own plan. There are runners who say, okay, for the first 2 miles this is what I do, for the next 2 miles this is what I do. If you see on the television how marathoners start the run, not all of them are in a rush. They have a different pace and different kind of thing. And conscious of time, I would like to stop with this message that whether it is a marathon or a sprint, every small step will contribute towards that. Instead of carrying the whole thing every day and being overwhelmed, be consistent. And what Coach Kanji is mentioning so many times, and I really worship that thing, is you have to enjoy every step close to heart. And that takes you, whether it is in business or in personal life, less anxiety to manage. And
100%.
to some extent no anxiety, but let's remain practical. Bring it down, manage it step by step.
Well
Your
said.
words before we close.
Well said. Well, I think I'll end on this because you mentioned sprint, and we have talked much about, journeying in terms of the longitude of it, marathon esque. Um, even sprinters do drills to get better at sprinting. So
Yeah,
even if your ambition is something in the short term, there's still a way of micro like focusing on acts and application, um, for you to then make incremental improvements in the overall outcome, right? So,
100%.
we can look at from all angles. You can learn so much from so many different people. I just love looking at athletes and sports people, because there's so much one can relate, in terms of the physical to then the mental and other
Exactly.
capacities of our
Yeah.
lives. So, but yeah, but that's
This
all I can
this is
say.
why we looked at, you cannot jump, you have to do step by step.
Yeah, and this even that look, because we could keep going with it, right? Because
Yeah.
some people, if you were to start being, let's say, a long jumper or a high jumper, again, one thing's, what do you just start running and jumping and seeing if you can improve each time? No, because you'll
Practice.
reach a kind of like a limit, a ceiling, where you then, right, I have to work on my stride, I have to work on my little my lifts, and like how my weight distribution is, and there's so many different things. You go back to focusing on the micro and just improving each and every step. Right. I
Yeah.
was watching this program on Netflix about sprinters in America, one about Linford Christie, and I was fascinated by, oh, so this is how they get an extra second faster.
Extra
Right.
second.
It's
Yeah.
the incremental improvements they make every day, the consistency of turning up to the track, whether it's soft work, hard work, they work and they enjoy it. They call it play.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Coach Inayat, and thank you to our wonderful audience. And we'll see each other again next week. Keep the questions coming, keep talking about these things, and we will always be here to answer questions and keep sharing topics. Thank you, everyone, once more.